Hey everyone, sorry for the slight delay. We had a couple technical issues we needed to resolve. So I'm keenly aware that I am the last thing standing between you and beverages and nourishment or both. So I'm going to keep this moving along fairly quickly. The good news is I've only got 200 slides and 3 live code demos. So time's going to fly by. So it's going to be really, really easy. So my name's Rob Masson. I am a solutions architect. Oh, good, it worked. I'm a solutions architect in Southern California for the enterprise group. So one of the things that I get to do is I get to work with some of our larger customers on some interesting integrations as well as applications of Twilio. And today I'm going to talk to you particularly around one of our customers who shall remain nameless about some of the work they're doing around integrating Twilio with Salesforce.com Marketing Cloud. As you know, Salesforce.com is a great partner of ours. We've done some really, really cool stuff with them directly into the Salesforce.com product. Marketing Cloud is another area where we found some great synergies, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done and some lessons learned about that. And then at the end of this, I'd like to answer some questions from you guys about what we did, how we did it, and what the future looks like for this kind of an integration. So quickly, here's our agenda. What we're trying to solve. I'm a solutions architect. I like to try and define the problem before we try and solve it. Then give you really kind of an overview of what that solution looked like. Typically for an architect, what I'm going to try and do is take a very complex set of requirements, grossly simplify them into a diagram. So we're going to have a chance to walk through that. I'd also like to sort of explore with you guys and articulate what it kind of looks like as an architect to go through this process. And this can define what it's like to actually help solve a problem like this with a solutions architect on your team. And then the real meat of this is going to be some of the lessons that we learned. So if you're currently using Salesforce.com Marketing Cloud or interested in this kind of an integration, this will be some great stuff for you guys to sort of take away. Lastly, some Q&A, and then we're going to wrap the whole thing up with a couple resources for you to take away. There's some repositories that we've got online for you to get access to more information if this is something you really want to pursue. Okay, so what are we trying to solve? It's important as a solutions architect to basically define what the stopping conditions are for our engagement. And this particular one, what we were trying to solve, we really wanted to facilitate an ability for our customer to be able to use Salesforce.com's Marketing Cloud and that whole infrastructure around journeys, which they've invested in heavily, and use that to facilitate adding a distributor and a new customer relationship and sort of building that. They have this capability in email currently. We want to add this around SMS to give them a much more high-touch kind of a relationship. The other thing that's important in this is we also wanted to be able to capture the conversation both outbound, all the outbound messages that they're sending to their customers, and any inbound. And you saw this morning at our keynote, Jeff talking about the importance of that conversation. It's incredibly important to be able to not only send messages to your customers, but also listen to them and hear what's coming back. And we wanted to be able to capture that not only for action, but also as part of that customer record in Salesforce.com. For the customer experience, we really wanted to give them the ability to reach out with a local number. And if you've read any of our best practices around SMS, we talk a lot about the importance of using local numbers. If you're going to use SMS as a channel, which we encourage, you want to be able to sort of have the sense that it's a local communication. It's not just some random number, but it's something in their local area code, and the chance of them responding to that and working with that number increases dramatically. And then, of course, finally, and kind of the real purpose of this talk is we really want to leverage the existing Marketing Cloud journeys that our customers already invested heavily in. In those cases, the template for email, we wanted to be able to translate that into an SMS version of that. But we don't want to throw away all of that work. They have a huge investment in that. We wanted to leverage that. So those were the kind of the things that we were trying to solve in this solution. All right, why SMS? So currently the solution is using email. We love email. You know, we view email as a very, very valid channel, but SMS is an alternative channel, and for some customers, a preferred channel. And there's some reasons why they like that. And there's some reasons why, as a company, you want to use SMS as a channel as well. So the real big one that we see consistently in the marketplace is the open rate. 95% of all the SMS messages are open and read. 95%. That's a staggering number when you compare it to just about any other channel. The other really staggering fact around that is that 90% of those SMS messages, it's very close to the end of the day, are opened within the first 3 minutes. 3-minute response time for 90%. That's an incredible number. And being able to have that channel to your customers to start a conversation is a tremendous advantage. I've mentioned this before, local long codes, so that first 3 numbers of the prefix of a number have a better open rate than non-local numbers. So you can get out of a Twilio inventory any number you'd like, but you can also specify a local number to a target number, and if you're aligning those two, you have a better open rate. So even beyond sometimes 90%, if you're being smart about which numbers that you choose from, okay? And then ultimately SMS, as we're experiencing, again, Jeff mentioned this in his keynote this morning, is we're creating this high-touch conversation, this relationship with your customer that now allows you to reach out to them and have them reach out back to you. And SMS is an excellent channel to be able to facilitate that kind of a high-touch relationship. Okay, now before we go any further, a warning. Know that it's not time to drink, but that this is not a product. What we're going to talk about here is a customization. It's an integration. If you're interested in this, and we would love to talk to you if you are, this is going to require developer resources. You are going to have to make an investment from a build perspective. We love that, but you're not going to be able to go out and just install this capability, okay? Fair warning. Okay, so let's talk about what that solution really looks like. So a few key points here. We are going to provision a phone number for each new staff member when they become onboarded into this organization. So in this case, for a customer, that was a distributor. They're a multi-level marketing company. So when they get a new distributor on board, they want to issue them a phone number that they're going to use for all of these SMS communications. And that phone number is then going to actually get stored in Salesforce.com and will be used for all their communications as part of the reference. So it's important for us to be able to coordinate during that onboarding process of generating a new number and then storing it in Salesforce.com. And then we're going to use that phone number when executing any marketing campaigns associated with that distributor and their customers. So we're going to really kind of use that as a focal point of communication between the distributor and all of their customers. And then we're going to log all of those inbound and outbound messages, not only into the Twilio infrastructure, which we do automatically, but we also want to copy those message logs specifically over into the Salesforce.com record so that it becomes the CRM of record of not only the SMS messages that we're generating, but any other communications that they may be having as well, which could be email, for example. It could be other channels and communications that they're doing. Okay, so what does that look like? And I apologize in the back if this is hard. We're going to try and walk through this a little bit. There's really two key areas, and then of course Twilio in here. So this first area is our marketing cloud, and this is really kind of where the journey begins. No pun intended. We're leveraging a mechanism within Salesforce.com's marketing cloud capability called a custom action. And if you're not familiar with what Salesforce.com Marketing Cloud looks like, it's very much a drag and drop editor, not that dissimilar from Studio. And you can create a custom action that allows you to sort of build in some code. We have something similar called a function. And you can stuff anything that you would like into here. And in this case, what we're doing is we're using that opportunity of bringing in that customer context for the journey and any templating information from the journey, and then making a call into Twilio's API to generate our SMS message. So that journey gets kicked off from whatever internal process that you want, and we can leverage existing infrastructure by doing that. And then from here, we get to generate an SMS message, and you can sort of see this as this arrow in here as we come into our API. Now, the thing that's also going on here, and again, I apologize for the folks in the back, is that we really want to also be able to capture some of those outbound messages in the Salesforce.com record. We can do that a number of different ways. We've represented that here as being part of that same process that initiates the message, okay? The key here from a coordination perspective is the Twilio phone number. That really is kind of the linking piece between the outbound and inbound messages and allows us to sort of track and manage that relationship. So now the customer receives a message as part of this journey, and then as they respond back, that comes in back through here, and then we can bring that back in through a custom app. And our particular customer, in this case, has actually built a lot of their infrastructure right on top of Salesforce.com's customer applications. They're going to manage that conversation between themselves and their distributors, not through handsets on the distributor side, which we could certainly facilitate in some circumstances, but in this case, we're actually going to manage it here in a customer app. And a lot of that has to do with that one-to-many relationship of distributors to their own customers. By keeping that message in that custom app, we can preserve some context back and forth and make sure that all of those messages line up at the end. Now, this solution was actually developed for our customer pre-conversations, and if I could go back in time in a machine and go back, we might actually see an interesting application of the Conversations API. So if you're thinking about along those terms, you're thinking in the right terms, that we've moved the capabilities ahead with some of the new announcements. But for this particular customer, that wasn't available. So we're really kind of focused here on using the currently existing SMS programmable APIs. Now, all of this information is actually getting stored within Salesforce.com, and that's kind of represented on the bottom with that Salesforce.com records icon, so that the context of that conversation is being preserved for them inbound and outbound on a consistent basis. Salesforce.com, in this case, is the system of record. And that's a phrase that you'll hear quite a bit in a lot of these solutions is we need to designate and be consistent with the customer about where it is that they're seeing all of their information and aligning it all up. Sometimes that's Twilio itself, but in many cases with our enterprise customers in particular, they have another system of record in which they want to bring that information in and line it all up from a number of different sources. And we can certainly support that in a solution like this, okay? So let me tell you a little bit about the life cycle of a solution. How did we get to this? So there's really kind of an evolution here of the process as a solutions architect. I'm going to sort of tell you a little bit of how the sausage is made. Because when we typically engage with a customer and they say, we want to do this, we say, well, of course, 10,000 gigawatts, that's easy. So we have APIs, anything's possible. And then really what happens is we start to dig in and what we start to understand is some of the constraints of the system. So we knew, for example, going in here, we had 2 world-class products, they had APIs, this is gonna be great. And then what we find out that there are considerations beyond just, can we do this kind of a thing, right? And then it kind of sounds like that conversation in Jurassic Park with Jeff Goldblum's characters like, yeah, you could do it, but should you do it? So sometimes what we have to do as a solutions architect is continue the conversation beyond the, yes, we can wire that together, but what is it that you really want to do and why do you want to do it? And understand the requirements at a more fundamental level and sort of explore, what does that really mean? So we did merge these things together and create Tyrannosaurus Rex out of turtle eggs. What does that really, really give us? That's when we need to sort of revisit that a little bit. I'm getting my 5-minute warning, and I know that you guys are looking for something more thirsty questioning, so let's go to lessons learned. Okay, so here's some of the lessons that we learned. We have done this, by the way, this is being field tested, but here's the lessons that we learned. Using email is not the same as SMS. It's a really, really big difference. In SMS, for email, for example, you can send them multiple journeys at the same time. It's media rich. SMS is not. It's a very effective channel, but it's a very narrow channel. So how you use your journeys in SMS is going to be different, and it needs to be single-threaded compared to email. And that was a huge lesson learned for us, okay? And there's some best practices for SMS that we don't use in email. For example, text should be short and impactful, and you can use images, but it increases the cost. A lot of email campaigns are robust, have a lot of graphics, they're beautiful. That costs you a lot of money in terms of MMS, and text should be short. So your SMS journeys need to be much more terse in comparison to a more robust email campaign, for example. Okay? And then finally, and we cannot stress this enough, there are rules about what you can broadcast, especially if you're using long codes. So if you have very templated messages, you may get those restricted on SMS. That you would not have that same problem in email. So you have to be careful about the message that you are crafting. Okay. I blazed through that really quickly. I'm going to do question and answers, but I'm going to throw this up as we're doing that. I do have a repo set up in GitHub for these slides. And some little more deeper in details about exactly how we implemented this. So there's some information there about how you can wire up Marketing Cloud and Twilio in terms of solution diagrams. I was told by my marketing people I couldn't throw up something that detailed, but they're available to you if you want that kind of level of detail. Of course, some stuff here about our Twilio API, some links there. And unfortunately, I did not update this link about the links to this link to press. But you can find it in the GitHub repository, which is the really, really good news. Okay, I know I'm just about out of time. I'd love to turn it around. Questions from the audience. Back over here.
So with this integration, you have a one-to-many marketing campaign that is sent out on behalf of agents or advisors. And then when the response comes back, you channel it back to the specific advisors.
Yeah, it's a great question. So do we have a one-to-many relationship between the distributors and the customers and then filtering it back? That was the intention, was that there would be sort of multiple campaigns running simultaneously. In testing, it turned out that didn't work very well because suddenly you got like 3 or 4 different SMS messages that weren't connected to one another and seemed scrambled. So what we ended up doing, this was the lesson learned, is we really we needed to focus it down to a single serial campaign where you did one and you were waiting for the response. And that really was the change from a blast approach to a campaign to more a conversation. SMS gets you to that conversation. You need to rethink your campaign about not just I'm throwing stuff out there, but what if I can initiate a conversation with my customer? What would that start to look like? And that's where we ended up in terms of the POC.
You mentioned that for this particular client, you're trying to track every outbound and inbound.
Yep.
Did you run into limitations with either API limits or Salesforce, data storage issues with so many small events happening all the time?
That's a very good question. The question, if you hadn't heard it, was there any restrictions about data limitations in terms of inbound and outbound? Because that could potentially be an issue. Currently, we haven't pulled this out at scale. So we're really just trying it with about 1,000 distributors and their customers, and it hasn't become an issue. From a Twilio perspective, other than sort of about the 100 messages per second limit on your API calls, that's really not an issue from us. We're working with Salesforce.com to make sure they're not going to hit any speed bumps on their side, on their data storage side. At this point, we're not really projecting any of those, but it's a good question. And in cases like this, when they scale up, we like to engage with our customer success team and our launch team to make sure that your API limits don't become a barrier. And we can change those for you as you scale up these kinds of solutions. It's an excellent question, thank you. Anything else? Awesome. Folks, thank you very much. Hope you're having a great signal. Please grab yourself some refreshing beverages, and I'll be around if you need to have any follow-up questions. Thanks very much.